is today. Okay. Okay, everyone. So we're soon to start. My name is Christian Sasse, SassePhoto, and we are almost ready to start. I hope you can hear me now. We had some technical issues, so I hope that's solved. So I run SassePhoto together with my team, and today we have Mike Dupuy. He's an expert falconer and also a propagator, and he will explain how that all works. It's very interesting. So it's another amazing event. So we're just going to have the countdown, doing everything manual at the moment because I just had a computer crash just a minute ago. Hope everything's going to be stable now. So fingers crossed. And then we are all set to go. Well, hello everyone. It's good to see you all again. So I'm Christian Sasse, SassePhoto again, and we have another Friday. It's Friday again. It's weekend. That's wonderful. And we have another great Raptor show coming ahead. This time it's Mike Dupuy. And I've been looking Mike up a bit in his really interesting history. He's also a public speaker. It's going to be wonderful to have him here. And just before I start, I just wanted to wish you all a wonderful Friday. It's at the end of July, and I just want to say we've had some devastating fires on the West Coast. I just am thinking of my friends Kit Hardy and Jamie Harvey, with whom I've been in Australia, who come from the town of Reading. Reading has been heavily hit by fire. Jamie is a firefighter, and he is very much involved in the firefighting at the moment. So I just think we should give them some good thoughts and very good wishes along their way. I think Kit had to evacuate her house yesterday, so I think the situation is quite serious. If you remember last time we had these floating glasses, well, that was Kit in the background helping me with all these magic tricks. She's quite incredible, very much involved with eagles and wildlife, a wonderful personality. So, fingers crossed that everything will be okay. It's really disturbing how wildfires are spreading. And at the same time, on the East Coast, we have floods. So, I mean, for me, these are very clear indicators of, there's very clear indicators of climate change, which we have to take quite serious. So that's a quick thought about Kit Harvey and Jamie Harvey, Jamie doing a wonderful job there as a firefighter. So now let's get on with the live show. We got something really exciting today. So I've got Mike Dupuy here, and he's also a public speaker. And I'm going to switch over. Let's hope that everything works now. I just had a computer crash, so hopefully everything works. So I'm going to switch over to Mike now. Hello, Mike. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Very good,
Welcome.
Mike. Mike, it's wonderful to have you on the show. Thank you so much for joining. I've read a lot about you, and I've learned the word propagator today, which is interesting. So you're not only a master falconer, you're also a propagator. Can you tell us a little bit about your background, please? Thank you.
Sure. Well, I could start with my birth, but I don't want to bore everyone. I'm Mike Dupuy. I'm a falconer, and it's interesting. What I've done is engineered my life around my passion for birds of prey and falconry. So I have created a couple of businesses. One is a public speaking business, which is called Mike Dupuy Falconry, and the other is a raptor food business called Mike Dupuy Hawk Food. And we ship food to the lower 48. We'd love to ship to Canada, especially British Columbia, which I love. but currently that's what we do.
British Columbia, that's good.
I also, yeah, I also breed raptors. That's a whole evolution of its own, and I'm still in learning mode. We've successfully bred a few birds, and my passion is goshawks and trying to breed them right now. So I'm looking forward to doing that. And that's kind of the big picture. Last thing to cover is the falconry part. I principally fly one falcon and a goshawk for hunting season, and then occasionally I throw in a harris hawk or two that I have. I generally hunt, like to hunt off the fist with a goshawk. It's my favorite way to hunt. And I'll pursue ducks, pheasant, and rabbits. We might try for ruffed grouse this year. So that's the falconry angle some falconers might be interested in.
Well, Mike, I think you're very modest. You say you're still in the learning mode, which really speaks for you. Not many people say that because you are, after all, a master falconer. And you're talking about goshawks. What is your fascination with goshawks? And why have you only recently discovered interacting with them, or what is your fascination?
I can't say I've recently discovered them, but they've been coveted by me for quite a long time, since I was a young man. Goshawks are a little more sensitive to work with and require a little bit more experience. They're also in this part of the country, in the eastern part of the United States, particularly close to the southeastern where we are. They're not as abundant. And I serve on the Pennsylvania Biological Survey in terms of researching and studying them and chronicling their life history. But at the same time, I fly them as a falconer, and I wanted to try to breed this bird that apparently has a proclivity of the female to not only kill her mate, but to kill the mate and eat him. They're so difficult to detect in the forest. That's another part of the detective story. So it's just the bird that I keyed in on. I think it's also one of the most beautiful of the hawk species. I think it's one of the most beautiful of the hawk species in North America. And, and its speed off the fist, just exhilarating. So that's why that's a little bit of the goshawk, but I read a lot about the goshawk. Many times I find myself doing online searches every spring where I'm downloading the same PDF that I have on my hard drive 5 times over. So I get a little bit obsessive about goshawks.
Very good. Mike, could you just speak up a little bit more? I've turned up the volume a little bit, so that's fine. I'm just getting from Nichole telling me the sound is a little bit on the low side, but that's fine. It's okay. So I'm just correcting it.
No problem. Is there a volume jack here?
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine.
Is that better now?
It's a lot better.
Okay, good. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I mean, you can't know. There's one thing. So I just wanted to say, because Mike is quite far out in the countryside, if we get some intermittent internet connections, don't go away. We'll fix it again. Okay, because sometimes it's just the way it is, because nature and technology are don't always go hand in hand. Anyway.
Well, my hat's off to you for even doing this. We're getting FiOS within the next 30 days, and we've had to go through a bunch of procedures to do that, but we'll be catching up soon, and perhaps we can reconvene if this breaks up. But I appreciate your doing this, and I can't believe the amount of work you put into putting on this live cast.
Well, thank you very much. But I just wanted to say that's also my team that does that. I'm just going to blend in quickly that you know who the team is. So that's Sasha, Nichole, who arranges everything. It's Jenny, Kevin, who does all the IT work, and then Susie, and then Belladonna. You can't see Belladonna. Let me just...
Good job, guys.
Well, thanks. So we really enjoy doing this. You know, I got very excited when I, in a different way, I didn't even know this, Mike, when I was listening to your radio interview, which I don't really want to repeat here because it's one of these stories that you ask yourself, how on earth is it possible, about your legal case and so on. But let's not dwell on that. If anybody's interested in that, it's all on Mike's website. But I learned a lot there just listening to it, because Mike's a very enthusiastic falconer. But I also learned the word propagator, which was new. And I also learned that there are about 4,000 falconers in the U.S. Is that right? 4,000?
4,000 to 4,500 per annum. And in this state, for example, there are about 150. A bigger state like New York, you might have 200. California has the largest number, 600 plus. And that number fluctuates. You have inactive falconers, active falconers. But as far as propagators in my state, as of that court case you're talking about, there were 10, and I was one of 10. Funny thing, the judge at the end, before he read the verdict, he said he thanked the prosecution for bringing their case, and he thanked the defense. And he said, never before has the court had a petty offense misdemeanor with 47 exhibits. He said, never before has the court had a master falconer to teach us in the ancient art of falconry, nor has the court had a propagator of raptors to educate us on the ways of propagating raptors. So the judge was actually quite just kind and deliberative. You never know what's going to happen when you bring a case to court. But luckily, we were victorious and we won, as we should have, because the case was unwarranted.
Well, I know, I couldn't believe it. You know, it is incredible just about this case, because you could have paid a low fine, which means you would have lost your license for no reason whatsoever, or you were ready to fight, which which is incredible, which cost you a fortune. But I'm very glad that they're still sensible judges and that the system went this way, because I think to fight the state or what you were doing there is incredibly brave. And I mean, you stood up for your rights, and that's what I like about the States. I mean, you can stand up for your rights and you get your rights, and that's what the U.S. Constitution is built on. So I'm glad it's still working.
Well, thank you for that. And I have to say, I thank my mother and father for the values they instilled in me, because quite frankly, 95% of the people that get charged with anything in the United States plead down. They don't take it to court. They can't afford the judicial system, and they can't afford to fight. When you see your name versus the United States of America, it's quite daunting. Believe me, as good as I may look right now, I shed some tears over that. It was like, what the, how's this happening? But you gotta take them as the cards are dealt. And my family felt that after 30 years of developing a reputation, that I had to protect my reputation, because I was going to be smeared with a scarlet letter, and I just couldn't let that happen. They offered me 3 plea deals, and I rejected those because I wasn't going to say I stole any oranges. I'm being metaphorically here. And in the end, it went our way. So I'm happy about that. And any falconer that's in trouble in the United States, give me a call, send me a text. I'll do whatever I can to help you.
Yeah, Mike, just quickly, because I don't want to explain what happened, but can you just, I see some questions coming in, since you're talking about the case, what was it about? Now that I've opened the can of worms here,
you might as well. This is like at any party, I go, don't okay. Ask me, because if I start talking about
I'm sorry, but
I'll do briefly.
Okay.
So I have 2 permits, a federal permit for propagation and a federal permit for falconry. Now the federal permit has been welded up into one for falconry just by the state. The feds got tired of dealing with this small group of falconers, so they relegated it to the states. You states administer falconry. For propagation, they still have a 2-track system, a federal permit and a state permit. Now, imagine you're the head of special permits at a state Department of Natural Resources. You know about deer hunting, you know about duck hunting, pheasant hunting, all the popular forms of hunting. You know what the violations are, your officers do. But when you have a state with 12 million people and 150 falconers, your officers are likely to be misinformed about what the regulations and rules are. And as one of my attorneys said, this gentleman was the former president of the Pennsylvania Game Commission, who served as my attorney. He'd been a board member of the Game Commission board for 10 years and president for 6 years. When you're up against this kind of system, with this kind of regulations that we have to deal with in the U.S., you practically need to be an attorney to determine what you can or can't do. For example, on your falconry permit, it says you may use your falconry birds for up to 7 months a year for propagation without transferring them from one permit to the other. On the propagation permit, it says you may not use your propagation birds for 1 day in falconry without transferring them to yourself. So imagine you're filling out a form to transfer a bird you own to yourself, and then you have to fill out another form to receive that bird from yourself to yourself. I digress a bit, but that's the complexity of what we got into. And when I got this incredible lawyer to agree to represent me, and he arrived when the undercover agent arrived with my local game officer, game warden. You know, he was asked what he's there for, and we thought we'd work it out at Harrisburg at the headquarters, but they elevated to, in America, there's a saying, don't make a federal case out of this. Well, they did. And they took my other lawyer off the playing field, and then we had to secure another attorney, a federal attorney, to defend me in court. So the whole substance of the case is 2 permits, each allow a take of 2 wild birds per annum with a max of 5 for falconry. I don't know if it's delineated what the max is for propagation. I had a year, 2014, where I was working with several friends, and most years I go with taking no birds for propagation or falconry. Some years, 1 bird, especially with goshawks. They're hard to find around here. That year I got lucky and I was able to secure 3 birds. And since I pay for 3 permits, federal and state, for the propagation, I figured if I can jumpstart my propagation plans by getting the birds, I will. So apparently the people in Harrisburg at the Pennsylvania Game Commission weren't aware that these rules have been changed. Lucky for me, when I spoke to the federal person in my regional office in Hadley, Massachusetts, she said, you're good to go when you can take the birds. Here's what it's going to say. And she sent it to me in an email. It said, you may take, possess, transport raptors for propagation stock. Okay, so I had that in writing in an email, thank God. I said, is there anything else I need to do? She said, no, just contact your state guy. And I said, so I did. So I contacted the gentleman who does the administrative work at the Pennsylvania Game Commission, who I'd spoken to for maybe 8 years in a row at that point. And he said, Mike, when you get the bird, I'll send you the band. And I said, fine. I didn't, double check or anything. I just assumed that's what he'd do. So later they said I'd taken too many birds for falconry. That's the essence of it. When I had taken 2 for propagation, 1 for falconry, and I self-reported that to my game officer. So anyway, there were, the goshawks endangered, a bunch of other stuff came up which wasn't true, and they pursued it. Here's the ironic thing. By the time we get to trial, my attorneys discovered in the Pennsylvania Code, it says raptor propagation, or it says propagation, then it says propagation stock. It says you may not remove any wild animal or bird for propagation stock except raptors. And I had all the proper permits. So there were other contradictions that came up in the state's case. But that's kind of the essence of it. And I was found not guilty.
And that's incredible. And I just saw Osprey Mama putting in a question. She's a very avid and permanent listener here, or viewer, saying, well, that's always the question. How much did you pay? Did anybody actually fund you? Because I know it costs horrendous money to fight the state.
We had some very kind followers on Facebook donate money through GoFundMe. Friends of mine, people that have seen me do my public speaking thing. And we raised probably around $5,000, but the case just in cash invoices from our attorneys surmounted $35,000, and that doesn't count the distraction from your life, your business. You're just kind of feeling like, it's like, oh, the FBI is investigating me, or here come the mounted police undercover agents to interview me. It's pretty daunting.
Well, I mean, goodness me, I'm completely shocked, Mike, because I mean, okay, it's wonderful that you had support, but 5,000 compared to 35 or whatever plus your life. I mean, did you do this self-funded then, or how did you manage it?
We self-funded it, yeah, and the trial alone cost us $14,000, and there's still work to be done because the Pennsylvania Game Commission is refusing to elucidate me as to why the state law in writing says I can do it, but they continue to insist I need the written permission to take a bird for propagation stock. So what they're asking me to do now, or not asking me, what they're forcing me to do, is I have to take the birds under my falconry permit, keep them for 2 years, which precludes me for getting a wild bird, a passage bird for falconry purposes that year if that's what I truly want. keep them for 2 years, and then transfer them to myself on the propagation permit. That's what they're making me do. Now, pickings have been light for goshawks here, so it hasn't really been a problem. But if you're going to breed birds and you plan to fly them as well, unless you're just doing it as a backyard project, it's best not to fly them, especially goshawks, because something's going to happen to them. And you have to reset. The minute something happens to a bird that's 3 years old, you got to reset and start all over to replace her or him. I had several birds killed by West Nile virus last year, including one female goshawk. So I was down to one female goshawk, and she laid for the first time. She was one of the birds involved with my case. She laid for the first time this spring. They were infertile. So it's you know, you don't do this to get rich. You don't breed birds to become a billionaire. There's some people that have done well at it, but for the most part, it's a labor of love. What most of us do, what you do, you know, what a lot of raptorphiles do, it's a labor of love. You know, but if I'm attacked and I can in any way defend myself, and I encourage everybody to do this, I will defend myself, and I'll muster every resource I can. In fact, I had a former U.S. Attorney General call me here at my home. He had defended my father in a case, and that's Ramsey Clark under the Johnson administration, several times to follow up on my case. So I had a lot of good advice and a lot of good people. And my attorney, Jim Lister, from Washington, D.C., if you ever need a good wildlife attorney, give me a call. He's your man. He's a really good attorney, and same as my state attorney, great guy, Tom Boop. But Tom got sidelined because of the politics of the issue. But you know what? I won, and anybody needs advice, I think it's best that we have some stories of success and victory. I want to teach people how to use their lawmakers. Every meeting I've had with the Pennsylvania Game Commission since that case 3 years ago, February, has been held in the majority leaders of the state Senate's office in the state capitol, or my state representative's office in the state capitol. And the reason for that is, you know, I'm not going to go play good cop, bad cop with people that really tried to screw me over.
Well, Mark, that shows who you really are. I have deep admiration, I'm sure the others too, that to stand up against the state and win the case is incredible. You know what really surprises me with all this? Maybe that's something I'm missing. I would have still thought that if you win the case, you would be completely reimbursed for everything, because you are absolutely not at fault in any way. I mean, this is what it has proven, but you still have to, you know, you really have to go so deep into pockets, which, I mean, gosh, Falconer certainly doesn't have, right?
Right, and federal law precludes your suing the state unless you can prove words that you can't wrap your arms around. So you have to prove malicious intent and a bunch of other things. On a state level, I think that's the very reason why the state of Pennsylvania continues to not be able to explain how they square what they did with you may not take any wild animal or bird for propagation stock except raptors. And then they go on to talk about the proper permits, which I had. I think that's why they don't want to answer that question, because then the onus will fall upon them. I could have bought maybe 40 goshawks for that price and not gone through all the stress and all that. But again, you know, that's behind me now. We're going to keep moving forward. We're going to hold them to account, and I'm using my lawmakers to level the playing field for me, to represent me, to provide me with constituent services. And whenever a falconer calls and is trouble, you know, first thing I do is, you know, make sure they understand the regulations that they're looking at in themselves, not just counting what other people are saying. Second is get good counsel, at least a consultation. And three, use your lawmakers as leveling of the playing field to represent you if you think some law is being misinterpreted or wrong. And I was able to do that. So we still have a fight to go. The state of Pennsylvania denied me my documents to me, from me, and about me. So we're going to be, you know, asking for those. And, you know, but, you know, I want to move on with my life. I live my life looking out the front windshield, not the back, not constantly replaying what happened. I find that's more productive. So I want to do that. But like a person you probably know, Frank Beebe,
Yes.
I'll fight. And,
Yes.
you know, Frank, you know, didn't put up with suffer fools. Frank also had his own opinions, and we all do. And Frank didn't even fight his case when they got him up in the Hudson Bay with some gyrfalcons, which were not illegal. He didn't even fight it because it was such a long trip to go back, according to him. And I take him at his word. So one of the things I'm all about, and the reason I love teaching people about falconry and raptors is, I have a bumper sticker, and I'll send you one. It's called, falconry is not a crime.
Oh my goodness!
I did a talk for the California Hawking Club a few years ago, right before I went to trial, actually, and not knowing what the outcome would be. That would be in January 3 years ago, and it was called the decriminalization of falconry. We need to dial it back. I mean, I live in a country where you can have 1,000 assault rifles, but you get one kestrel and you're going to jail. It's crazy. It's so out of balance.
Well, I'm glad you're alluding to this. This is something, as Canadians, we have difficulties understanding many things that are going on in the States. One of these is, if I find it, at least in British Columbia, I can pick up an eagle feather because it does no harm. I can take it home. I can show it to you here. It's legal. If I took it across the border, I could be imprisoned for it. It's
right.
So way out, but that's the law, right? So
well, but we can swing the law back, and we as citizens can push back on the lawmakers and say, look, this doesn't make sense anymore. I could understand in the 1920s where people were selling clothing with feathers all over it, killing birds specifically to collect their eggs and not even consume them. It made sense then, but to me, if you go to most people that love the outdoors, you go to their kitchen sink, there's going to be a little tiny vessel, a little tiny vase, and it's going to have a glass thing. It's going to have feathers. It's going to be a cardinal feather, a blue jay feather, flicker feather, and they're going to be so proud of that little feather. And it connects them to nature. They found that when they were
well said.
And we need to do that. We need to bring this back to balance and common sense. A little boy comes to my house interested in falconry, interested in raptors. I got thousands of feathers all over, and I got to pick a non-indigenous species to give him a feather. How ridiculous is that? It's not like I'm plucking one off a wild red tail like a Native American might have done thousands of years ago, and even that's not a problem. But anyway, we got to swing things back. We got to push back. We got to fight for our right to party. And partying for me is birds of prey and falconry.
Wonderfully said, Mike. I love your energy, Mike. I'm going to hand it over now to the. I want to all our viewers, because this is what the show is about. I just started the conversation. So please give Nichole and the team all your questions. I'm going to start with some questions here, and I think this one is probably from Nichole. Thanks, Nichole, again for arranging this. So her question here is, or maybe it is somebody's question anyway, how long does it take for the birds to be comfortable with their training?
Well, that depends on the level of comfort of the falconer and the trainer. So the more experience you have, the more comfort you have, the easier it's going to be for the bird, and the quicker you can train the bird. So I think a lot of new falconers become obsessive with the bird, and they think they have to hold the bird 24/7, like the old Wakings, T.H. White's, goshawk. And you just don't need to do that anymore if you read the modern literature. But some birds, personality-wise, they never really get comfortable. Other birds get comfortable really easily. Imprint birds sometimes go crazy on you. Imprint birds sometimes are the most gentle birds. So you have to read it. You have to gauge it. I treat every bird as a wild bird. I always know how far away it is from my face, how far away it is from my body, or someone else's body, how choked up I have the jesses. So I always treat them as wild birds until I, really, really, really know a bird. I'm assuming, the worst and protecting people from any accidents that could occur. But if you know what you're doing, I can take a wild red-tailed hawk that I trap, and within 2 weeks I can have it flying free and coming to me. I think that's kind of the gold standard for most falconers. And I don't encourage apprentices to do that. I think that's ridiculous. It's not a contest. Let it take 30 days. Let it take 120 if that's what it takes you. I think many of us want to rush people into the field and start scoring as if it's a game, where I think slow deliberative with your bird makes more sense in general. But a master falconer should be able to take a wild bird like a red tail, and within about 2 weeks to 21 days have it flying free and hunting, catching game, and coming back.
Yeah, and talking about your birds and your friends, can you show us who your friend behind there is and a
Yeah,
little bit more?
that's Athena, and her brother Apollo is right outside in one of my chambers right there. Athena is one of my least well-behaved birds. So
Least
that
well behaved. That's why you
yeah,
got her.
well, she's impressive. So I made that whistle call because that lets her know it's me that's about to pick her up, not some
Right,
animal about to hit
right.
her. So that's her food call. So all my birds, when they hear, they know that it's me and or it's feeding time. I have her hood on her. Apollo, I could unhood and he would just sit here and look at the camera, look at me. But with her, she'll jump off my fist and hang up upside down and embarrass me. And that's why I try not to judge other falconers, because what you see is just a snapshot of what's going on. And
Right,
it,
of
it could be
course.
the very first time that their bird's done what it's doing, or it could be that red hat that you're wearing or whatever. So if she hangs upside down, I let her get it out of her system, flap towards the ground for a while, and then she'll right herself, and then it's over. But Athena's a gyr falcon, and she's actually a gyr saker hybrid. She's 1/8 saker, and she's a big bird, approaching 3 pounds. More than 3 pounds fat, and that's at the non-flying weight, the molting weight. And she's a long wing, which is what we call our falcons. Um, and I was actually looking at getting a permit to trap out of Maryland along the Maryland coast. And they have, for the peregrine take, they have a picture of a gyrfalcon. So I think I better tell them that that's not that bird. This is a bird that as a young man, as a young woman, if you get into falconry, you kind of dream about this or goshawk or kind of birds that you aspire to. And they're formidable birds. And Frank Beebe has me wanting a passage, a tiercel, because he said, there isn't anything that bird can pursue that it cannot catch. So Frank had a lot of, I have a lot of
Oh,
Frankicisms. If you want to hear, he started his interview this way. He said, I went to school every day on homemade skis with a rifle in my hand. I was like, I got goosebumps. I was like, dude, what was the rifle for? That was what I'm thinking. So he said, what was the rifle for? And he said, it was the Depression then, and a red pelt squirrel was worth 50 cents, and that was a lot of money then. I was like, wow. I thought it was for wolves or something. So anyway, Frank had I think a Gyr peregrine hybrid Maxi when I visited him in British Columbia in 2006. But that's another story.
yeah, I have to ask you this because you talk about British Columbia very much. My friend is eagle biologist David Hancock, who's been around for quite some time. You may or may not know him because, I mean, of course, there's so many. He used to be a falconer too. He's now.
That was the only show I watched.
Oh, so you know.
I was like, oh, David Hancock. Okay, well, yeah, we've communicated.
Very nice, very
Well,
nice.
I need to get back in touch with him. But I ran into his people at the Raptor Research Conference in Salt Lake last year. And I was at the Raptor Research Conference in Cape May the year before with Tom Cade. Um, and
Yes,
I'm not
yes.
just dropping names, but I've made it my part of my life's work to chronicle the stories of people like Cade, Beebe, Webster, Heinz Meg, and others not so notable people. I'd love to get Hancock, and I have pictures of him and Beebe in the Queen Charlotte Islands, where they're both young men and they're wearing, Beebe's wearing this fluorescent orange hat and he's got baby falcons and they had a float boat. Beebe sent me a bunch of
Really?
slides. Yeah, a bunch of slides, 3 boxes of slides before he passed away.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and I've yet to share those with the world, but they're little time capsules, and I know that Hancock and him would go on these expeditions together.
That's correct.
So
Yes,
I
yes.
believe Hancock's in the other frame. He's
Gosh.
in the shot. He probably set up the shots because I don't think Frank was into photography. He was more a field guy. Um, but yeah. Anyway, lots of admiration for Frank Beebe and his contributions to raptors, birds of prey, art. Just an incredible man. Had at least 5 careers, and I only knew the falconry side of him, and I learned so much from him.
Well, no, that's a great story. A question here: what type of food do you actually ship?
Oh, good question. You you can I'd actually ask Christine to bring out some food, but we'll save you that. So we have frozen roosters, day-old cockerels. We have grown cockerels that we grow to 150 grams. We have quail, we have mice, we have rats. We have a product called Beak Be Gone. It's to work on those tirings, those beaks that get too long where you have to cope the bird's beak or feet back. So we sell a product that I call Beak Be Gone. It's rooster heads and necks, and it's something for your bird to work on that's just not a soft piece of chicken or mouse. Um, and then we sell all those products in one box. We sell them on the pallet. So we have customers that will order, 12,000 units at a time, and other customers that are ordering, what the equivalent of a few boxes of ice cream. And we ship to the lower 48. So Mike Dupuy Hawk Food, and Dupuy is the hardest part of that, Dupuy, is the hawk food business. And now that's grown to equipment, mostly standard equipment. We don't sell every version of bell and every version of perch, but we have an indoor and outdoor version of every kind of perch, from eagle down to kestrel. And we keep them low cost, so a beginner falconer can get it, finish it themselves, say for $55 for a bow perch, or 75 for a rotating ring perch. So we keep the cost down, and the latest thing, and you can see it over my shoulder, maybe those white structures.
Yes, I see them. Yes, yes.
Those are my houses, and you can put them up in 8 by 8 by 8 in less than 2 hours, and with two people, and you can take it down in 15 minutes. And so they're movable. They've survived hurricane winds, and we've had them tested by Bucknell University Engineering Department. I'm very proud of them. We've shipped them all over the United States, California, Oregon, New Hampshire, down south. So we're broadening our customer base there. It's got all sorts of features that people that keep raptors will really like, including you can pressure wash it. So Penn State bought two 16-foot long ones recently.
Wow.
And it's really cool to just have your birds right off the back of your deck, but it's not in some ramshackle looking thing that doesn't look like the one next to it and the one next to it. So they're scalable. You can add one to the left or right without compromising the birds in there. And then I have breeding versions of those. I have a 12 by 12 by 12 out there. That's for my Eurasian eagle owls. So we can scale them up and down.
Very nice. Very
yeah.
nice.
And the USDA is actually considering them for their animal confinement quarantine. And so we're excited about that.
Gosh, very, very interesting. So you're obviously very innovative. I mean, to make money as a falconer is not easy, but you seem to find your ways.
I took a course at university. I went to school the hard way, part-time, most of the time, except for the first few years, right, was a community college, and then information systems at University of Maryland, and finally at Georgetown University, where I wanted to study public policy. And by the way, I've run for public office, Congress and Senate, state Senate. So I took a course there, though, that really changed my life. It was called Work, Leisure, and Creativity. And it's how do you tie your work time and your leisure time and creativity time so it's all one time. When my mother-in-law is visiting and says, "You're going into the woods today, aren't you going to work?" I can say, that is my work. Anything having to do with raptors is my work. And I don't feel as guilty anymore now that I've made it official.
Very nice. So Susan North now has a question. Do you train them to fly and then come back to you? And do you do that with all the birds you work with?
Good question, Susan. Yes, for falconry purposes, you wanted to train them to fly, to come to you. I try to do that with every bird because you never know if you're going to have just an accidental release. Even though it's a bird you just plan to breed, they have wings and they can fly. I have one bird, a Saker falcon, her name's Hollywood. She took off from here just doing a demo flight for someone where she wasn't responding. She ended up 381 miles away. That was an accidental release. So it's a good idea to train them to come back. They don't come back to you because they love you and all that. It's more conditioned response, and we work hard at that just through repetition and training. And the bird has built up a trust with you. So, they do at some point gain a trust and realize that you're not going to rob them of the food that you're offering and that you're a partner.
Very good. And Mac Lady has an interesting question here. Did you ever have a bird that you could not train, and why?
Hmm. Well, I think you're talking about my children.
Right. I was going to avoid that question, but anyway. It's okay.
Yeah. Yes, there are a few species that are really tough. I've had a tough time with the Cooper's hawk. It's just wired very differently. And I'm one of the few people that just admits it. Some people pretend they do better with them than they do. And some people are really good with that kind of bird and can master it. So that's one bird I never felt like I really figured out how to train a passage bird. An IS bird I've trained, and that's fine. That's a lot easier, actually. But a passage Cooper's hawk will reject the food, flick it away from you, and when you get to sub-zero temperatures, you're releasing that bird 4 days later may not be a solution because you're dooming it to death if you've dropped its weight that much with that metabolism. So there have been a few birds that I've given up on that I don't even bother with because I can have a lot more fun dealing with other birds that have a little more padding in their training and have a better disposition.
Okay, so we know now about the Cooper's hawk. Here comes a question from Kindle's Cats. Oh my goodness, I can't even pronounce it. Cats and Be Gold or something like that. Why the bells on her?
Kindle's Cats, hi. And I should have said hi to the other people. Thanks for asking your questions, all of you. So the bells on the hawk, I put a bell on all my birds prey that certainly I'm going to fly. The ones that are just for breeding static, I may keep the bells off of them. But I tell you, if they get out, having that bell on it is worth its weight in gold. In the medieval period, when you lost your bird, you'd ask a neighbor, have you seen a bird with bells on it or heard a bell with birds on it? And that's how you'd locate the bird. So once the bird goes out of sight, those bells are priceless. There's some falconers who say, oh, they're great horned owl attractors. I don't see how that can be. I don't see why a great horned owl would be attracted to a mechanical sound like a bell clapping. It might draw their attention to something, but I think just then turn to, oh, I can eat it. I just don't see how that makes sense. So that's why I put them on is when you can't see the bird, you can hear it even if it's a quarter mile away. Even if it's diving or flying at you, you can hear those bells. And it's kind of a comfort if you don't have telemetry on the bird to at least have the bells, because that was the old telemetry bells. Now for cat people, our dachshunds, I have little dachshund dogs and we have cats, and they wear bells from a friend of mine, Tom France, who invented the portable giant hood that's made of aluminum, and I bought the business from his family when he passed away. But he makes excellent bells for hawks, small hawks, like a kestrel I have right now has one on it. And we put those on our dachshunds so we don't step on them, and also our cats to, maybe mitigate some of their killing of wild birds.
Yes, what a good point. By the way, I remember seeing your video on your dachshunds out in the snow. I saw that one
Yeah.
chasing a rabbit or so.
They're fun dogs. They're great energy, and they're kind of like a cat at home. They just get in bed and curl up, once they're home. But they're ferocious in the field.
Okay. Well, Susie Q wants to know, how long do these wonderful birds live?
Hey there, Susie Q. Well, first you got to get past the first year. If you make it past the first year where you have a 70 to up to 90% mortality level, then you might, I'd say 7 to 10 years would be a good life for a normal wild raptor. Many of my friends who fly red tails have them into their 30s and still hunt them into their 30s. Peregrines and other falcons probably into their 20s more commonly. Harris hawks, I had a Harris hawk die on this property. I was 36 years old. I inherited it from a falconer. His wife got sick. He promised he'd take care of it. And then he got sick, and I took it, and it finally died here. But it was 36 years old, which is amazing. I had a Harris hawk that lived and laid eggs 25 years. But you have to, every time you get a bird of prey, every time you get it back, that's a good day. That's good enough. You're not chronicling how long have they lived. But depending on the species, it can be quite short, and other species can be quite long-lived. With human help and care and veterinary care, daily feeding, protection from predators, they do have a better chance than in the wild. But in the wild, they still maintain healthy populations, even at that low 30 to 10% survivability. because if everybody survived, there would be no prey. There'd just be too many predators. And so the system levels itself out unless we get some environmental disaster like we did with DDT.
Right, that's a silent spring, yes. Yes,
Right.
we were touching on that topic on the last session. Christy H. asks, why do falconers interbreed the birds? What a good question.
Christy H., go figure. I mean, look at humans. Look at what we do. Just look at what humans do and try to figure that out. But here's how I'll just explain it to you this way. Imagine you love driving a Humvee. I don't know why you would, but just imagine you love having that kind of big, muscly vehicle. And then, but you also want something that's as fast as a Ferrari. So you take a Ferrari and you breed it with a Humvee and you get a hybrid. That's basically what hybridization is you're trying to take the two qualities of two different birds, mix them together and see what you get. Humans are very Frankenstein, Dr. Frankenstein type creatures. And if there's an opportunity to explore, we're curious. And if it's not unethical, most of us will do it. What's interesting is my friend William Clark, who wrote the Peterson Field Guide on hawks, he gave a speech at the Raptor Research Conference of all sorts of crosses, including a male Cooper's hawk and a female goshawk in the wild. So hybridization is happening in the wild, like it or not. And falconers do it. Generally, the birds are imprinted. We fly them with more transmitters. But I've heard of no, breeding of these hybrids everywhere or anything like that. It probably happens here and there, but I don't think it's the end of the world.
Good answer. Jackie Porter wants to know, have you ever had a bird not return?
Yes, that's called the heartbreaker experience. And that's why I don't name some of my birds anymore. My goshawks, their name is the year of when I took them and their gender. 2013 goshawk, I'm still flying. Because it's just heartbreaking when that happens. It's like somebody's been kidnapped from your life and they're just gone. When you fly raptors, they have wings and they can just dematerialize. And they could be perfectly fine or they could be dead. It's Schrodinger's cat. You don't know until you look. And sometimes it's always a mystery. So I lost a goshawk here back in about 2009. Made the national press, and I had people calling me from all over the United States telling me my bird was right outside their window right now. So it gets a bit confusing, emotional. Sometimes you find the bird dead, and that's just as devastating. But I don't like not knowing, and there's one bird I had, two birds I've had that just dematerialized, never saw them again, and I still wonder about them.
Interesting. Yeah, Margaret 59 wants to know, do you use GPS tracking when hunting?
I do. I just invested in a GPS system last year. I've been using just good old telemetry channel 216, and I still use that as my primary. But what I found is with short-winged hawks, broad-winged hawks like the red tail, generally they're closer than you think. The goshawk is generally closer than you think. The falcons, on the other hand, are usually further than you think. So most of my GPS stuff is either going to be for my goshawks or my falcons. I think too many of us are over-reliant on that in place of training, and that's just one cautionary tale. You have to train your bird. It doesn't matter if you have GPS on it. You can locate it, but you can't get it back. We lost Apollo, Athena's brother, in Manhattan. I was doing a public program in front of 1,000 people, and there were some red tails and peregrines floating above him on the Palisade Cliffs, and off he went. And we caught up with him 3 days later in New Jersey.
Wow.
It's you don't do this if you're faint of heart.
No.
Get a stuffed dog.
Goodness me. Yeah, no, I admire that, Mike. Proud cat mama of two. Yeah, there she is again. Mike, can you explain about falconry telemetry? I think you mentioned that word a few times. Can you please explain more about that?
Sure. So I could bring it up, but I have a directional antenna. So it has a pistol grip and it has these antennas that come out of it. And if you're pointing it north and the bird is north, it will beep louder. If you turn it 180 degrees to the south, the beep gets fainter as you go south. So as you get close to the bird, the beep gets more intense. If there's a building blocking you, that will interfere with the signal. If there's a metal building, it could actually, the bird could be behind you and you're heading towards the building that's bouncing off. Things like mountains and other physical objects will absorb the signal. So it gets complicated. When I lost that falcon that went 380 miles, I searched from our state capital to Penn State, about 50 miles apart, never getting a signal for the bird. The last signal I had was to the southwest, and I caught up with that bird in another way, low tech. I put my birds on every one of my birds, the word reward and my cell number and home number. And I've gotten more birds back with human contact because my birds are comfortable with people. They get in proximity with people, and you can read my number, from afar, from 20 feet away, or from, binoculars. And I had an Amish guy find my 2013 goshawk. It was about 12, 13 miles from here by the time we caught up with it. So that's another thing. Not over-relying on the technology, but the telemetry is wonderful. It gives you a sense of peace that the bird is right there. And especially at night, if you don't catch up with a bird till nighttime, having that telemetry on it really helps you track it down. And what I do is I train my birds. The last thing I do when I'm training them is to come to me at night. So I'll have them leave a perch and fly to me 30 feet in the dark. The first 10 feet, then 20 feet, then 30 feet. And then do it a few times, and generally I can get a bird down even at night. It's a little scary when a falcon's flying around you in the dark because they tend to want to circle you.
How interesting.
Yeah. You just envision a great horned owl swooping and grabbing your bird and flying away. But that's never happened, but that's always my fear when I'm calling a bird in at night, is that some owl is watching.
Good. Well, thank you for that long, interesting answer. Christy H. again, she wants to know, what do you do with birds that you've given up on?
I don't give up.
I knew you would say that. I knew it.
No, for example, Apollo got West Nile virus last year. He lost his vision, and I'm going to keep him. He was a good bird to me, great flying bird, and I have a bit of a relationship with him, and I feel I owe it to him. I might be able to use him for breeding, artificial insemination. I'm not sure, but if I lose a bird, I'll search for days, weeks, and I'll keep looking out the window forever if it's right at home. But I don't give up. I just don't see giving up on my birds. I do get, if a bird dies, and if it's going downhill because of an illness, because of an injury, I have kind of bulletproofed my heart around that. But a loss where the bird just, dematerializes, that's still a hard one.
Yeah, I think that's a very good answer. Now a little bit about your lifestyle. So proud cat mama of two says again, hi Mike, what is your workplace like, of a falconer like? So basically, how does your day run? What is your life like? Yes, tell us something.
Well, one of the greatest things is, engineering this life where you work from home is really nice. And getting, being at home is just wonderful. I don't have to commute. I did that for years in the Washington, D.C. metro area. So I don't have to do that anymore. So my chances of dying in a car accident have been reduced a great deal. So that just starts out the day great. Second, first thing I do when I'm up is I look out the window at my muse, and right out the kitchen window, I'm looking at two goshawks, Eurasian eagle owls to the left, Apollo, the blind gyrsaker to the right. So I start my day that way. And then I got to go feed. I'm breeding kestrels right now, so I got to go give them their first feeding so they can feed their young. So I do that. I'll put eyeballs on the babies. Then I live up on a high hill in central Pennsylvania, surrounded by hundreds of acres of farmland and forest. A mountain, 2,000-foot mountain to my left looking out the window. We're up on a 900-foot hill. So when my pigeons are flying at their loft 30 feet below, they're flying at eye level from the house. So I've just kind of got this perfect setting to live, work, and play. But the hard side of it is you never leave work. You're always at work. And so you can always find, one more thing to do. And so you got to break away. And I do my research time when I go into the field to look for goshawks. That's a time that I can cut loose. But overall, I'd much rather work at home and be what's called the executive monkey to myself than have some person that's looking at their watch every day when I walk in. Because I don't do that well.
Well, I mean, you built up your life, which is incredible. But I'm just curious when you travel, or I'm sure you do travel, you were talking about traveling to BC and so on. Who looks after your birds then?
Well, we've got a really good team here at Mike Dupuy Hawk Food, and we have people that have been house sitting for us for years. We have remote security cameras that we can check while we're traveling. Some are in chambers if it's an important bird. And we've got staff that work the Mike Dupuy Hawk Food business that live close by that can drop by on the weekends. So we have paid staff. That's basically it. We don't count on family. The kids have their own things that they want to do and they're going to do. And I've got over 30 birds that need to be fed every day and have somebody look at them to make sure there's not a problem. And usually there isn't. But so it is stressful. If we say we're going to leave by noon, we generally get out of the house by 3 or 5 if we're going on a trip. It's really hard to break away from the farm.
Wow, there you go. Are there any more questions? I don't know how we're doing with time. Let me just check. Oh, we're doing fine. We're already an hour. So, Mike, maybe what I'd like to do, what we usually do is I want to get the audience involved with some questions. So I would like you to think of 3 questions. We didn't even have time to discuss this, so I hope I'm not... I'm not putting you on the spot here, but questions about falcons or anything that you would like to ask, make them difficult. We sometimes have really challenging questions, which is great. That's what it's all about. But they can win 3 of my beautiful photographs on eagles and so on. That's the idea, and they will call in. So if it's okay with you. Sure. We'll go to some questions. So let me just switch over to my other channel here so that they can call in. So I just wanted to say then, I'll open the line. Let me just blend in the phone number here. 1 second. Let's see if we can, yeah, there you go. There you should be able to see the phone number, 425-223-4960. That's 425-223-4960. You're welcome to call in, and hopefully the technology will not fail this time. Mike, you won't be able to hear them, but I will repeat things as they talk, and I will basically translate the dialogue, okay? It's just, okay. I've never figured it out from an audio system without getting incredible interference. So anyway, so Mike, yeah, go ahead, just ask a question.
Let's see. Does voting matter?
Oh, does that is too, oh my goodness.
It does matter. It does matter in the sense of public policy. It does matter in the sense of the Endangered Species Act. It does matter in the sense of citizens weighing in on issues that they feel are critical to the environment. Critical issues, for example, if you love raptors, the fact that raptors are still persecuted. And when they're persecuted by non-falconers or non-licensed parties, people are basically smacked on the hand. When any infraction occurs to the licensed person, it becomes, like we're dealing with the last passenger pigeon in our hands. So, you got to take it not only on the big picture level, which is kind of how I threw that question out, but down to the local level. Being represented well matters. And even though you're a part of a minority activity like falconry or birds of prey, you still have rights constitutionally to be protected as a class of people.
Okay, I'm just going to take, there's a caller who obviously wants to answer this question. Wait 1 second. Hello?
All right. Yeah.
Hello, with whom am I speaking? Hello? Oh, wait, let's try again. 1 second.
Sure.
Yeah. Hello? Hello? Hello, with whom am I speaking, please? Teresa. Teresa, hi, welcome. Teresa, from where are you calling? From Pennsylvania, can you believe it? That Mike is laughing.
Hello, PA.
He says, hello, PA. Okay, I have to translate that because unfortunately you can't hear each other, but I'll communicate that. Oh, now she's gone. I don't know what happened there. She disappeared. Maybe she got scared. Maybe she'll call again. But anyway, Mike, it's very interesting you should say, does voting matter? I was just talking to a very good friend of mine in California exactly about that. My wife, by the way, is Brazilian. And in Brazil, it is mandatory to vote in a democracy because otherwise you will not get your passport renewed. Honestly, my opinion is that's great because... Yes. because we should be engaged. I don't want to get too political here, but I'm a strong believer that we should be very much engaged in our local, regional, and our national interests. And it is devastating to see that most people ignore that for whatever reason. So it's amazing you just brought up the subject. So
well, and I realize it's a little ballsy to do it, but at the same time, I was teaching biology classes at Susquehanna University down the road, and I was talking to some soil conservation students from around the state that belong to the ag departments of their schools and represent their schools. And I said, we can no longer have scientists who stand on the sidelines and wait to give their objective report. We need to have scientists who stand on their report, that want to, get up on a bully pulpit and say, no, that is not true, what you're being told. Because I think a lot of scientists in the United States are being silenced for business interest. And to me, that is in no way in the public good.
I completely agree. I'm a physicist myself. I'm a scientist. I have a PhD.
I noticed you're a big time researcher.
I usually don't get political, but unfortunately, I think it's very important to become political now, because the way science is being dealt with is absolutely disgusting. It is. We have to rely on scientific data, whether it has to do anything with food, with it could go with astronomy, with our climate or whatever. That's the only thing we have. We cannot just go on a belief system. I mean, we're not hundreds of years ago we did this, but nowadays we have these tools, and they're the best tools we have, whether we like it or not. And I am a strong supporter of scientific facts. It's a difficult process, but it's the only one that I know that really works. So
I agree. And just even in the keeping of raptors, if you don't hold the people that regulate you to account for their empirical data, quite often there's fictional empirical data given in public accounts that has no basis in truth. And look at the fact that up until last year, only 36 peregrines were taken in the whole United States, when the whole reintroduction of peregrines was engineered by falconers. I think that we have to press the empirical facts when they're not on our side, and we're going to be there when they don't make sense and they are on our side, because we care about these raptors, and we're going to be the ones that are on the front line trying to help them. People like Frank, people like you, people like David Hancock, Tom Cade, and countless other people that have contributed to the conservation of raptors, but also enjoyed being a falconer.
Right, exactly. Well, anyway, you've got some more questions coming in, but know what we have. I think I have a bit of problems here with the calling system. So what I'm going to ask instead is that they put the answers right into the chat now. That's another way of doing it. I need to. I don't know what it is with the calling system. It's not quite working, but it doesn't matter. But Mike, now some more specific
bird stuff.
Bird stuff. Yes, you got it.
I'll give you bird stuff.
Yeah, give me some bird stuff, and let's throw it out there and see the first person who answers, and we'll go back, and then I'll give you some more questions here coming in. So here we go, Mike.
All right. So which do you think would have the longest life in the wild, a male goshawk or a female goshawk?
Oh, now this is a great question. A male or a female goshawk in the wild, which do you think has the longer life? Maybe is there also and why, or is it just who it is?
I think why. Why is
and why?
Question, yeah.
Okay, here you got it. That's a great question. Now it's going to be like that. One's going to say male, the other one female, and then you win something. I think we're going to make it a little bit more difficult. We want some reasoning there too, because it's only fair. There must be a reason, why nature behaves like that, or at least from our observation. So yeah, that's fine. So nobody needs to call in, but just put it in the chat, and then Nichole, can you kindly copy it over? In the meantime, so think about the goshawk now, the male, female, which one lives longer in the wild? I'm going to ask another question to Mike in the meantime. Here, let's see, where are we now? Oh, Wobbies wants to know, Mike, do you sponsor any apprentice falconers? And if so, how many do you have, or how do you sponsor them? It's all about sponsoring apprentice falconers.
Yes, I encourage other falconers to, and I lobby other falconers to take on apprentices because you're capped off at I think three personally, and I not only do that, I started the Pennsylvania Falconry Association to encourage and nurture new people, not shame them and make them feel stupid. So we have a good mix of people that come here to our farm. We've had several field meets here. Several picnics. We have an apprentice workshop coming up mid-October. That's in Central PA. And all you have to do is register through the Pennsylvania Falconry Association, and it's not, the registration's not up yet, but it's going to be up soon. We had a field meet last year for 3 days off-site, good attendance, and so we've got a good community here. I do apprentice. I've got 2 or 3 people right now that are apprenticing under me, and I've got about a dozen people that I've helped find sponsors. Even people, just had a young lady move from California, referred to me by a falconer in California that I know, and I just helped her find a sponsor last week. That sponsor said no the first time and the second time, but when we finally spoke, I got her to agree.
Thanks, Mike. Now here comes our first answer from Osprey Mama, who loves ospreys.
Hey, Osprey Mama.
Yeah, she's wonderful. Male. So her answer is very interesting here. She thinks the male hunts more family. The male hunts more, and the female lives longer as she's not so much in danger. So what she's basically saying, the female lives longer because the male is more out to hunting.
Is that her final answer?
That is there. That's the nice thing. They can't argue with you because they wrote here.
Ah, okay.
So this is the good thing.
Yeah, mine is based on scientific empirical data from a biologist. Falconers will tell you anything. They'll just make it up sometimes. So you can't just rely on one falconer. But a biologist that studied goshawks has told me that on average we're finding the females are living 3 years and the males 7 years. And here's the reason why. Imagine you're a female and you're sitting up on those eggs on that nest for 33 days. That's not counting the laying of the eggs, so maybe 35 days. So you're very vulnerable. You're literally a sitting duck. And as the spring turns to summer, you're molting feathers and other things. So that female is kind of wedded to that nest. In central Pennsylvania, we have video evidence of fishers climbing the tree in the middle of the night and killing the female sometimes, or the young in the nest in the middle of the night. The female sometimes flying off into the woods in the dark. So the female is a sitting duck during that whole breeding, nest, egg laying, and incubating and brooding period. And so she tends to get predated on by great horned owls and fishers on the nest. So she's actually more vulnerable.
Well, that's a great answer, and it's of course very logical. You know, when you hear that, it's completely logical. But again, it's it's something one doesn't think about. So let's ask the next question. So it's great you answered it straight away. So Mike, nobody got that one right, or we only allowed one answer. So can you please come with your next question? Yeah, thank you.
Let's see. What do I think is the best beginner hawk in North America as a continent?
Sorry, the best beginner hawk in North America?
Yeah. So if you want to be a new falconer, what would be the best hawk to start with?
Okay, so it's like riding a new horse. Which would which is the most tamest one where you don't fall off?
Which species? Which species do you think I would recommend? Yeah,
that is a great question. So we know which one it is not, right? We know it's not going to be the Cooper's hawk. We know that.
No, definitely not.
So that's the opposite.
That was Tom Cade's first bird.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, and he said he fed it fish.
Well, this is great. So that's a great question. Please, put in whoever wants to put in an answer, just put in an answer, and off we go. So I'll wait for Nichole to pass the answers through to me. So, here we go. It's Osprey Mama again. She can't let go. She says a red-tailed hawk.
Ding, 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 ding. I think she's right. I think that's probably... Yeah.
You are
Yeah.
right. You are right.
Immature red-tailed hawk.
You are absolutely right. Well, that's interesting. It would have been my first guess, but I had no idea why. Well, so why is it then like that, Mike? Why?
I think it's a temperamentally, it's a very steady bird. It's not a bird that's quick to foot you. It's a very tolerant bird. It's a bird that has a big body mass, so you're not going to starve it to death without really getting a lot of clues that you're doing that. It's a bird that is readily available. I like to say to people, if you drive from here to California, you'll see one every quarter mile, in whatever direction you head in. They're just so abundant. It's a really good hunting bird. And, I just think it's best to start with, if you're going to start with a passage bird, with a bird of some size. I think it's a little more impressive when you come home with a rabbit than a mouse.
Well, it's so interesting you say that, Mike, because I was very impressed how incredibly robust and persistent red-tailed hawks are. Last year, I don't know if you know that, but here in British Columbia on Vancouver Island, we had an interesting incident where a red-tailed hawk was raised in an eagle's nest, right? And they had three, but really three siblings, and you had this tiny. You had this tiny red-tailed hawk that was brought up there. It was probably carried in to serve as prey, and then that's at least what Professor Bird. Yes, his name is really Professor Bird. And,
I know Professor Bird. I was going to ask you about him.
Oh, yeah. You do? Well, it's interesting. Well, he is absolutely incredible, and he explained it so well. There's a whole documentary that I did that became quite popular, and I'm very happy to say that interviews both David Hancock and Professor Bird, but it is all about the red-tailed hawk that was raised in eagle's nest, and they beautifully answer that. So I won't go into that, but it showed me how incredibly tough the red-tail is. This small, almost midget compared to these gigantic eaglets survived. It was incredible.
But as soon as the eagles get that red-tail in there and start thinking it's one of theirs, they're incredibly gentle too. It's amazing how raptors protect their talons. They're protecting the young from their feet. They're protecting the eggs. They'll try to foot you, but they'll try to protect the eggs. So the maternalism of the female is incredible. And we've seen a lot of species where you can foster, a Merlin to gyrfalcon or gyrfalcon to, they just will instantly take over caring for each other. In most instances, you can have tragedies too.
Okay, very good. So that was the first question. The first winner is Osprey Mama. Next question, Mike. We will have three. We need three people.
Okay. So, well, what bird would I recommend that you shy away from unless you like drinking bourbon?
Okay, I get it. So which bird is probably the fiercest bird unless you like bourbon? So which one should you shy away from? Which raptor is that?
Sort of untrainable, fierce.
Absolutely untrainable. Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Okay, here we go. So who's going to answer that one? Okay, let's see in the meantime, Mike, if I have some more questions that they're coming in. Let's see. I have lots of action here. Let me see.
Tell Dr. Bird I said hi, and I hope his drones are doing well.
Well, it's great. It's great. I'm going to see him. There's an ornithological conference here from the 19th till the 24th, and I'm doing daily interviews together with him. Wow. So I'm doing live broadcasting from the show. There'll be lots of people there, lots of students and so on. So I will see him. I will definitely say hello to him. Of course I will.
Thank you.
It's wonderful that you know him. Okay, so well, Christy H says Cooper's hawk, but I don't think that's what you mean, is it?
It is.
It is. Oh, so they have.
I said it earlier, so I was.
Yes, you said it earlier. Well, Christy, you paid attention, and that's fine. I was thinking maybe there's something.
I'm not saying they can't be trained. Okay, there's going to be somebody out there who goes, I train them all the time, and they're perfect. Well, yeah. So if you've got that finesse and you figured it out, hats off to you. But for the average person, it's not an easy bird to start with. It's a crazy bird to start with, is for the average person.
And you know, great. So Christy H, very well answered. So you're the second winner. But Mike, let me answer. Let me ask that another question. Not confining to North America, is there any raptor that you know of that you would call even worse than that? Is there anything you know internationally? Just asking that question. I'm just curious.
I've heard the New Zealand falcon. Nick Fox got a lot of scratches on his head. It's
Okay.
very aggressive. Um, you know, you have to be careful with eagles, golden eagles. And there's some people that are like the eagle whisperer and they have no problems. And there are other people that get seriously injured. My
Oh, wow.
sponsor, I don't know if you knew my sponsor, Jim Ruiz. Jim was at U.S. Fish and Wildlife
Right,
back in,
right, right,
yeah,
right. Yes.
he
Yeah,
was a biologist.
I do think I actually spoke to him a year ago. I think so. I think so.
Yeah,
Yes.
he's retired now, but
Hmm.
he said to me, he'd say these offhand things. He'd go, every falconer I know with an eagle has a patch on one eye. And that always stuck with me. But I just think, you know, I think it's a lot of it is falconer error. It's usually not the bird's error. It's the falconer's error in mishandling the bird, mistraining the bird, and not stopping things before they get serious. You have to control the line on your bird, the line on the food, on the lure, how far the bird is from your glove, and no further until you get to know a bird. Yeah, you have to really treat it as a wild creature, and they can hurt you. Um,
I see Mac Lady here with Harpy Eagle. Well, how about the Harpy Eagle? That's an interesting one.
all right, yes, but that's like saying, you know, what if Superman comes from that planet? Yeah, a harpy eagle. My friend Jim Fowler worked with harpies, and he told me his whole story of going down there and sleeping in the jungle and pulling him from the nest and trapping him and all that. But that's just not a bird that everybody's going to come across. But when I was a young man, there was a movie where I think there was a murder committed by a harpy eagle. So yeah, they're pretty dangerous.
Okay.
But you're just not going to run into them that often.
No, no. Okay, Mike, question number three is any, just think for a moment. I see other questions coming in, but anyway, we need one more question, please.
Oh, that I ask. Okay.
Yes, please.
Okay. What's the easiest way to trap your first passage hawk?
Okay, what's the easiest way to capture or trap your first passage hawk, right? That's it.
Correct.
That's it. Okay, now that's an interesting one. I've actually gone out trapping eagles with David Hancock, to put GPS devices on it. And I know
I saw your program on that. I watched
you did.
most of it. Yeah, I watched most of
So
it.
I was just wondering. I'm not going. Don't answer it, please. But I was
Right,
wondering
right.
if any of these apply. But anyway, so let's see. Let's see. So please answer and see what you have. In the meantime, I just see some questions coming in here.
Okay.
Let's see. So quite large. Let me see. Gosh, quite a number of questions. Let me just see. Yeah, here. Wobbies asks, Mike, how much weight can an average hawk or falcon carry in flight? Snowshoe hares are quite large, or do they eat it on the ground?
They'll uh, they'll generally consume some of it on the ground and fly away with some of it, um, especially with that large a prey. Um, but you know, big female goshawk could probably carry a snowshoe to her nest. Certainly carry parts of it to her nest. But often you'll see a hawk fly away with a big ball right in front of right below its beak, and that's its crop, full of food, and then carry the food in its talons to the nest. And snowshoe hare, jackrabbits, grouse are all prey of, say, the goshawk, and they can carry those. But the idea that they'll carry big prey long distances is probably not the case.
Okay, well, that's a good question. And another one here from Mac Lady. Have you ever gone to Mongolia? That's interesting. My son's just been in Mongolia. Have you ever gone to Mongolia, where, of course, they're big on falconry and have competitions?
I haven't been to Mongolia, but I have several Mongolian falconers as friends that I've seen in either UK, several festivals held there by Nick Fox, and the UAE. I've been to two of the UAE festivals. I've been to the Falconry fairs. I've been to South Africa. I've been to the Irish Falconers Club and the IAF conference, in South Africa. So I have been around. I've met a lot of people from all over the world, falconers from all over the world, including Mongolia. And they're very nice people. They're into their eagles, which is really cool. And I think goshawk's their backup bird. But it does seem like it's sort of become a cottage industry now, because they're on the cover of every magazine, and people are going there for trips. And that's great if they can get commerce through people exploring birds. I think it's wonderful.
Very nice. And by the way, let me see what the answers are that just came in here. 1 second. It's moving quite quickly here. I just saw, I just thought, how do we catch the, let me see where, goodness me. I just lost it. I'm sorry. I just thought I read the answer somewhere. Sorry, Nichole, can you put in the answer again if, because there's a bit of a muddle up here about the last question. What is the best way to trap a hawk? You know, what's the easiest way to do it? Okay, so if there's an answer, please come in again. I also see a quick thing that Susan North has, that Kathy is telling me, no, sorry, Christy, I think, told me that Susan North answered the second question. Well, why don't you both win? That's fine with me. I mean, it doesn't have to be the one or the other. If you both were at the same time, then you are both winners. So I'm fine with that, okay? So there's a lot of squabbling going on in the background, so I want to make sure everyone gets happy here. Okay, let's see. Okay. Goodness me, there's a lot. I don't know. There's some muddle up here. But Nichole, you work out. You work out whoever won. That's fine with me. It's fine. And if there are two winners, that's also fine. Okay. Let's see. So, what is the answer to the question? Does anybody have the answer yet? How would you bait, or how would you catch? What's the best way to catch or trap a hawk?
Are you asking me?
No. But Nichole says Miles answered the correct question to the trapping, but Nichole, help me out. I don't see his answer. Okay, just copy and paste the answer again. Okay, sorry. Just copy and paste his answer so that we get answered the correct questions to the trapping. So I just need to know what the answer was, because we haven't even discussed it yet. Okay, so if you could please, Nichole, just paste in the question, the answer again. The problem here, Mike, is that we always have a delay, right? There's always a time delay. So by the time it reaches Nichole, time has passed again. And
yeah, I like I said, my hat's off to you for doing this. I've thought of doing something like this, but all the setup that I see that you've gone through to make this happen is daunting, and I applaud you.
I think, well, Margaret 59 said a net baited with prey, and then Nichole is typing something. So just hang on 1 second so that we don't get, I don't get my wires crossed here. She's typing something. I'm just going to wait. So net baited, the answer is what? What? Bell Chatri? I don't understand that.
Yeah, Bell Chatri.
What is that? What does that mean? Sorry, I don't
That's
know.
It's an Indian noose trap.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, that's the simplest trap. You can deploy it from out the car window.
Oh, I didn't know that. Interesting. I never heard of it.
Yeah, it's got little nooses that stand up, made of monofilament, or now we're using leader line. They stand better. And you put the bait, a rat, a mouse, a gerbil, quail, in the trap. I've trapped prairie falcons with them, red tails, Harris hawks, you name it. And it's very simple to deploy.
Okay. Would you say that is the correct answer?
That's the answer I had in mind.
Oh, very good. Good for you. Yeah. And sorry about my misunderstanding here to everyone. I saw that Nichole put in the answer, but because I didn't understand the answer. Now I do. So my apologies for that. Fine.
You thought she was asking if you wanted a cup of chai latte.
I just didn't get it. It's the first time I've been tricked here, but I just didn't know. That's interesting. Okay.
The second easiest trap is the Swedish goshawk trap, which is just a
Mm-hmm.
live trap that you keep set up on your property, and you just check it once a day, and it's very reliable. But you can't drive
Okay.
around with that easily.
Okay, interesting. Okay, very good. Okay, so we have three people now that have won. That's great, and I hope Nicole got all the names. So what I'm quickly going to do now is I'm going to, Mike, I'm going to see if I can spin the wheel here. 1 second. I'm going to bring in the. Let's see if we can do this. 1 second. Put myself here. Yeah, well, you don't know how many layers I'm switching here. Can you see that wheel? Yes, but at the moment I don't hear you, which is not good. 1 second, I just have to figure out why your sound's not coming through. Let me just figure it out. 1 second, because that is always a bit complicated, showing different screens. So for some reason,
The eagle.
okay, now you're back again there, but
Right.
you know what?
I saw your wheel with the eagle.
Yeah,
on
that's
it.
right, but I'm here on different layers, so let me just 1 second. I need to figure out how
Sure.
to do this. I think I need to get this screen right up here. And okay, Mike, can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, now we got it right. You're behind there, but that's fine. I was going to stretch the
Okay.
screen.
Yeah, I see it. Yep.
I'm going to stretch the screen a little bit now. There we go. Okay, so what we do is very simple. I'm going to start the wheel, and you say stop whenever you wish.
Okay. Stop.
Okay, that's a nice picture. That is an eagle taking, that's called rising actually. That's a beautiful eagle taking off on White Rock Beach. So that was to our first winner, whoever that was. So excuse me, I've got completely confused. Whoever the first winner was, or maybe there were 2 or 3, that's the first picture. Thank you. So that's picture number 4. Let's spin again. And for the second.
Stop.
Okay, now
Whoa.
that's a beautiful juvenile.
Yeah.
That is incredible. That's a 1-year-old. And what was so incredible, you can look at the eyes, the cross-eyed.
Yeah.
And what was interesting,
Yeah.
I had an 800 millimeter lens, and this is a double picture because the beak was out of focus. So I had to take
Right.
the beak and then quickly focus on the eyes and combine both images. So it's a very rare image where you get incredible
That's a great
detail.
shot.
Thank you. Okay, so that's number 2, and let's spin on again for the third.
Stop.
Okay, now that's beautiful. That's a snowy owl just about to take off. I was very close to it. It was beautiful. That was on Boundary Bay, which is a nature
Wow.
reserve here. That's those are young snowy owls that come in from the north, northern Canada, and they come, of course, to hunt rodents. And they don't always come. They come in about every 7-8 years. So that's another beautiful picture. And yeah, and congratulations. So let's just get the screen back to you now. Good, I could fix that. There you are again. Good. So wonderful, Mike. Well, you know, this has been absolutely interesting. Let me just get back on my screen and see if I've got any other instructions here. Yeah, we've got, it seems to be all there. So I think we have them all. So anyway, if there are no more questions, if I've missed something, let me know. So we have at least 3 winners. And Mike, you know, this was most interesting. What I really like is your very proactive nature. You're not afraid to stand up for things. You're an absolute example. You're very young. You know, you really are in all senses. And
Thank you.
And it's absolutely wonderful to have you. I feel me and my team, we feel absolutely honored to have had you here. And thank you for taking the time to educate us in such a good way. And I hope you all take it home, especially in the States. Take the message home. Vote. You know, tell others.
That's right.
No, really,
Vote.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, I agree, and either way, vote. You know, no matter who you're going to vote for, but do vote, do participate, and do take your rights seriously, and don't give them up easily. I have a question for you. What made you start this? Because I'm intrigued by the breadth. I saw you had one on the great hornell, and I saw you had a bunch of other subjects you covered. What made you start doing this podcast related to raptors?
Well, thank you for asking. Well, my mentor, as far as birds were concerned, I started in 2011, was David Hancock, without a doubt. And David is very intellectual in the sense that, I mean, he's a walking encyclopedia when it comes to eagles, and he has got very strong opinions also about conservation. And he always said, Christian, you have to carry on the message of how important conservation of wildlife is and what the meaning of conservation is, because it is so misunderstood. And you know, with time, the way he talked to me, and thank you for asking that, I was very deeply touched and influenced, because I mean, David is just over 80 now, but of course the man has incredible energy, but he's running out of energy. So me being very technically minded actually fulfilled his dream. Many years ago, he was one of the first people who put up eagle cams and made it popular to the public. That was long before the eagle cams went out here. The servers broke down at that time when he had his first eagle cam, because so many people wanted to see live eagles. Now we have cams for everything, which is really wonderful. So that he was absolutely the pioneer in this. So his dream was always to have a show. And he says we have to communicate with people also out there who are not necessarily, you shouldn't preach, you shouldn't preach to the converted, right? You should talk to everyone, and you should spread the word. And this is exactly what I'm doing now, because I was so intrigued. I quit my job 2 years ago, exactly 2 years ago. I had I was running an electrical engineering company and so on. I quit my job and devoted my time completely into building up an own studio with my own funds and everything. And so this is where I am now. Now I'm an astronomer, actually, which is quite remarkable. So I'm earning my money as a dream job. I'm an astronomer and doing this on. So
That's wonderful.
It's similar to what you say. I'm really a strong believer that you can shape your own life. You just have to really believe in yourself. And
I agree. And Hancock is a great example to all of us. His publishing house, his support of so many different projects tangentially, his support of artists like Beebe, who had a great mind, great scientific mind, great abilities, but couldn't sell his way out of a paper bag. And you need a David Hancock to help make things happen. I'd love to work with him. I'm working on a project right now that I think he'd be interested in on Operation Falcon. I've been capturing interview footage of everybody from B.B. Webster to Frank Bond, NAFA's former attorney. I've had consultation with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who's a lawyer, other lawyers, NAFA's lawyers, and also Mr. McPartland, who is the federal undercover agent. I flew out to meet with him in Montana, sort of a preliminary get to know you. And other notable falconers who got caught up in it, as well as people that just heard about it. But I think it's sort of the last untold story in falconry of consequence.
Right, and I think I think that's really wonderful. Well, Mike, it's going to be a pleasure for me. It's very easy for me. I see David a few times a week. It's going to be an absolute pleasure. He was actually trying to call me. I don't know, during the show. Maybe he saw that you were on. So I will listen to the voicemail. But it's it'll be a pleasure for me to bring you two together. I think we have your cell phone number, so I'll join the call and we'll give you a call.
That'd be great. One last funny thing. My wife,
sure, of course.
We flew the day after the election. We were flying to Ireland to attend the IAF conference and the Falconers, the Irish Falconers hawking meet. They hosted it, and every cab driver asked us when we landed, "What are you doing over there in the United States?" This was right after the election. Since then, we've watched programs of people emigrating to Canada and Mexico, and my wife is a redhead and she doesn't like the cold or the hot. And so she recently said British Columbia is the one place in Canada she could see moving to. So
I
Uh,
agree.
uh,
That's why I
I'd
came
love
here.
I'd love to come up there again. I was up there in 2006 for 3 days to interview Frank and Hal. But I'd love to come back there, and I really enjoyed meeting Dr. Bird at the Raptor Research Conference. I've spoken to him in Mexico and I think in Canada, consulted with him on some other projects. And so I'd love to have a reason to come up there. And capturing David's story, it would be really important to this community because he's like David Frank of Western Sporting or Brad Wood of Northwoods. He's one of these guys that pioneered something that really made it easier for the rest of us to come, starting with Frank's books and then all the natural history books that he published, all the Eagle books he's published, um, all the opportunities he's created for people that might not otherwise get a publisher.
Well, Mike, this will be an open invitation. You are very welcome to stay with us. Our house is always open. We
Well,
have many
likewise, we've
guests.
got lots of space here, so come on over to Central PA.
No,
We'll
no,
get,
please, but come up and see, and also come and see David Hancock. He doesn't live. He
uh,
lives about 20 minutes from my house, 15
are you
minutes
on the
drive.
island?
No, no, not on the island at all. It's actually south of Vancouver.
Okay,
It's in
all right,
Surrey, but he lives very close to the border. And you know,
all
just come over, stay with us, take your wife along, and take all your birds along. I'm only joking. No, no come.
I'd love to do that. And we have great footage of Frank Beebe hugging Hal Webster goodbye
Oh, that's
as Hal
wonderful.
gets onto a 12-seater plane and flies off into the sky from their visit there.
Well,
So
that's great. I'm going to get you two together. So I will
let's
call
do it.
you. I'll call you in the next days. I just wanted to repeat the winner. So Osprey Mama wants to give her picture. She was the first one to you, Mike. So you're going to be sent that
Oh,
picture plus other pictures too,
thank you, Osprey Mama.
because Nichole will send you some more pictures. So
Thank you.
thank you to Osprey Mama.
Thank
The
you.
second winner is both Christy and Susan North, picture number 21, and the third winner is Miles Lerardi, right? Lerardi. So, well, thank you so much, Mike. So
Thank you.
I'll talk to you in a minute. I'm just going to say goodbye to everyone. Okay. So
Bye, everyone.
thanks again, Mike, for being on the
I'll hang
show.
on.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So I just like to wish you all a wonderful weekend. I think this was another amazing show. Thanks again to Nichole for making this possible, and to my wonderful team. I'll just again quickly give you the names here. That's Sasha, Gianni, Kevin, of course, Susie, and Belladonna. Thank you to all of you. And finally, thank you for tuning in. There you go. And my goodness, we've got this wonderful picture that Nichole composed. I hope you have time to read it all. But we're going to go on with shows every Friday. We've heard now that there are 4,000 falconers, and then not that we're going to interview a falconer every week, but there's also the upcoming ornithological show, which is very interesting. So I'm sure we're going to foster many new contacts, and we definitely are going to continue. So thank you so much for staying with us and enduring everything. And on that sense, I wish you a wonderful weekend, and goodbye, and see you again. Oh gosh, the dogs are barking. I better take care of them. So anyway, have a nice weekend. Okay, I think that went fine. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Mike. That was really great. It was wonderful. No, it is. Now it's actually really relaxed. It used to be much more difficult in the beginning because, my goodness, so many things went wrong and I had so much improvisation. My heart always went crazy. But now it's, the only thing that worries me is that your internet connection is good enough, because usually the live interviews are, very successful because the people who come on the shows are very dedicated. It's really wonderful, It's yeah. Yes, and we will, and I'll give my regards to David, okay? And anyway, have a lovely weekend. We'll talk soon. Okay, fine. Bye. 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 Okay, bye. Okay.